After my sophomore year, me and my family took a vacation to Myrtle Beach, and we usually only went vacation, a week, but this time we got to go for 2 weeks, and it really was one of the best vacations, we have. Me and Colton was starting to golf a lot. My dad golfed a lot, so we golfed like every day for 2 weeks, and Mom golfed some, but she just kind of hung out the pool. I mean, it's just one of those vacations that you never forget. And we was coming back home after our vacation. We was coming through Mount Airy. I was driving the car. My dad was in the passenger seat, and me and him was talking. My mom was behind him, and my brother was laying down in the back seat. Really, for no reason, the car just started swerving, out of control, and we just found ourselves in the median. And so we tried to pull it back on the road. Well, we was in a truck, so when we pulled it back on the road, it just started flipping. I just remember, the car just flipping over and over, and I was sitting there holding the steering wheel, and in my mind, all I was thinking, please God, don't let this come down on top of my head, and this be the end. I was just holding, I put my head down, and it just kept flipping, and then the car stopped. Kind of thankful, like, nothing happened to me. But then, when I looked to my right, my dad wasn't in the car, my mom wasn't in the car, and my brother wasn't in the car. I was the only one that had a seatbelt on. My brother, actually, he did too, but where he was laying down, he somehow came loose. And the car kind of turned, like where we was coming this way, and it flipped and kind of turned where we was, coming at us. And I just remember getting out of the car, and I see my dad laying there, and he was laying there in the middle on his back. My brother was laying on his back, and my mom was laying face down. The first person I ran into was my dad, and he was laying there, and there was just blood coming out of his mouth, and I was just, I was 16, I didn't really know what to do, I didn't know how to handle it, and I just tried to lift him up on the side to, to clear his airway. And by that time, people ran over to me, and they were saying, don't touch him, his neck might be broke. And so I jumped up real quick, and then I ran over to my brother, and he was just moaning, and his shirt was literally melted onto his skin where he slid on the road, and it was just black, and you could see it was like a yellow, and then where it just melted him, and he was moaning. And really what first hit my mom was, he was going to be a doctor, and now he's laying there, and it might not happen. And then I looked up, and I see my mom laying there, and she was face down, and by that time people was already all around her. So there was a family that actually grabbed me and pulled me to their van, and I just remember sitting there. I mean, I didn't know what to do. It just felt so hopeless. So then this family, they said they wanted to pray with me, so I prayed with them. And a cop came and got me, and they was asking me, trying to find out what really happened. And I was 16. I didn't really know. I just said I just started swerving. It felt like a tire blew. And so they sent me in the cop car, and I sit there, and they was working, on my family. And then I remember seeing these helicopters flying, and so they loaded, my family up in these helicopters and flew off. Well, I was still sitting in the cop car after they was all gone, and I was just kind of, it was like slow motion to me, just sitting there, looking at this and, seeing everything, all your belongings, all your clothes, and everything. You packed up your golf clubs. My dad had tools with him, and it was just scattered over like a football field. Probably about 30 minutes or something. They took me to. They said, we're going to take you to the hospital that we flew your mom. So they took my mom to one hospital, and they took my dad and my brother to another hospital. When we got to the hospital, they walked me in. A doctor came up and put his arm around me, and he started walking towards the room, and he said, your mother's gone. She's passed away. And probably about 3.5 hours later, so my uncle and aunt and my cousins came down and got me, and they took me to the other hospital. So once we got to the other hospital, they told me that my brother was in a room and he was stable, and but they had him in a neck brace because he did his head, and he had road rash pretty bad all over his back. And they really couldn't tell me much about my dad except he was still in critical condition. So they went to take me up to see my brother Colton, and they told me that he don't know your mom, that my mom Kelly was gone. So he didn't know mom passed, and so I had to tell him. I was the first one to tell him. They wanted to, they said, you can tell him, or we can have somebody else, and I just felt like I should do it. So I went in there and I knelt by his bed, and I said, I told him, I said, Colton, mom didn't make it. She's gone. And he was, they had him on some pain medication, and he didn't he didn't break down or anything, but he just closed his eyes, and you could tell, the same way when I was told, he was just shocked. They told us, they had my dad in ICU, but they pretty much said it didn't look good, and so they was going to try to run some more tests on my dad, to see if he would respond to anything, and so they ran the tests, and they told us, he's gone. If he would make it, he would just be a vegetable the rest of his life, and you and your brother would just have to take care of him. And I mean, I know that's not what he would want, and that's not what me and Colton wanted. And so it's his time, and it was his time, and I know he still wasn't there. I know that on that road, he was gone. God knew I had 2 grandmas that, would come and live with us, and really babied us, and we kind of got spoiled because of it. And then he knew, that my aunt and uncle, would be able to take care of us. And at the time, you're like, people would question God, like, why would you do this to me? But it talks in the Bible about how God won't put more on you than you can handle. God knew I had a family around me that would, take care of me. This story's it's been hard to tell, but it's moments like this that, I realize, why I was chosen for this to happen to me, because I know that I'd have the courage to tell this story, and it don't matter, if you've lost somebody, if you're going through divorce, if you've fallen away from your kids, but no matter what, God has a plan for your life. You may not realize it at the time, but in the long run, the pieces will fall into place, and then you'll realize, I came through this. I'm able to tell this story, and what if his story brings somebody together or brings somebody to Christ?